Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Elmwood Park Mayor and Council for April 2nd, 2020, to order at 6:30 p.m. On roll call, council members Fasolo.
Here.
Golobeck. Golobeck.
Maybe he went to the bathroom?
You have to hit. All right, just for the audience's sake, both council members Fasolo and Golobeck are on the call via teleconference. Ingui. Here. Pellegrin.
Here.
Wechsler. Here. Council President Balistreri.
Here.
Mayor Coletti.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Would everyone please rise for the prayer and flag salute? O God, our Father, we ask you to bless our meeting, which we entrust to your fatherly care and protection. Please remove all selfishness and prejudice from our hearts and implant therein a keen sense of justice and a greater love for you and our neighbor. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Whereas Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of the State of New Jersey require at the commencement of every meeting a statement of compliance be read by the presiding officer. Now, therefore, be advised that the meeting requirements for this meeting have been met by publishing a special meeting notice in the Record and Herald News and by posting such notice in the office of the Borough Clerk as well as in a public place within the municipal building, and by notifying interested citizens. Said notice was posted on February 28th, 2020, and again on March 26th, 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, this meeting is being videotaped and will be available on the Borough's website at www.elmwoodparknj.us. And now Erin's going to tell us a little about our procedure tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Please note that due to precautionary measures to help prevent the spread of COVID-19, we have a conference call set up for the public to call in as a means of participating in tonight's meeting. For the public's information and record, the public's lines will be muted except for when we open the meeting up for the budget hearing and public hearing portions. We thank you in advance for your patience during the operation of tonight's meeting. Under the approval of minutes, we have the September 6, 2018 work session and executive session meeting, September 13, 2018 work session meeting, September 20th, 2018 regular meeting, February 13th, 2020 work session and executive session meeting, February 20th, 2020 special work session meeting, February 27th, 2020 regular meeting, March 5th, 2020 work session and executive session meeting, March 12th work session and executive session meeting, and March 19th, 2020 regular meeting.
May I have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
We have a first by Ingui, second by Pellegrin. On roll call, council members Fasolo.
I'm going to recuse on September 6th, 2018, both of them. September 13th, 2018, and September 20th, 2018. Yes on the rest.
Thank you. Golobeck. Okay, absent for Golobeck. Ingui.
Yes on all except 2018, September 6th, both, September 13th, and September 20th. I will recuse myself.
Pellegrin.
Yes.
Wechsler.
I recuse myself on September the 6th, the work session, executive section, September the 13th, work session, September the 20th, regular meeting, and March the 12th, I was absent, yes to the rest.
Council President Balistreri.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next, we have items for our 2020 budget adoption. R169-20, ordinance number 20-09 on second reading. Whereas a public notice has been given by the Borough Clerk that an ordinance entitled "An Ordinance to Exceed the Municipal Budget Appropriation Limits and to Establish a Cap Bank." And whereas said ordinance was introduced and passed at a meeting held on Thursday, February 27, 2020, and that further consideration of this ordinance would be taken up at this meeting, whereas all persons interested in said ordinance were given an opportunity to be heard concerning the same. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Elmwood Park that an ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance to Exceed the Municipal Budget Appropriation Limits and to Establish a Cap Bank," pass on final reading.
May I have a motion to open this to the public?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Delaney?
First by Wetchler, second by Ingwe.
Mrs. Delaney, could you please open the lines
Yes.
for anyone who cares to listen?
For the public's convenience, I will be unmuting your lines. Should anyone be willing to speak on this ordinance and this ordinance only, please state your name and address.
All participants are muted.
Would anyone like to speak on this ordinance and this ordinance only?
If no one wishes to speak from the public, I will now close the public session.
All participants are unmuted.
May I have a motion to adopt the ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Call the roll.
First by Pellegrin, second by Wetchler. On roll call, council members Fasolo,
Yes.
Golubek,
Yes.
Ingwe,
Yes.
Pellegrin,
Yes.
Wetchler,
Yes.
Council President Balistrary.
Yes.
Motion carries. Moving on to Resolution R-170-20, adoption of the 2020 municipal budget. Be it resolved that the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Elmwood Park in the County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, hereby adopt the 2020 municipal budget set forth herein and shall constitute an appropriation for the purposes stated of the sums therein set forth as appropriations and authorization in the amount of $28,091,112.35 for municipal purposes as attached on the agenda.
May I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mrs. Delaney?
At this time, I will open up the lines to the public for anyone wishing to speak on the 2020 municipal budget, and just so that the audience is aware, here with us in person this evening is our CFO, Roy Rigatano.
All participants are muted, and they can unmute themselves. All participants are muted.
Sorry, everyone.
If no one else wishes to...
No. Host mute.
All participants are unmuted.
Would anyone like to speak on the budget?
Yeah,
Okay, please state your name and address for the record.
it's Victor Mikulovsky. The
Okay.
address is 8 Augusta Street.
Can you spell your last name?
Yep, MIKHAILOVSKY.
Thank you, Victor.
So before I get started on some of these questions, let me just take a step back real quick and ask, when was this budget, 2020, when was it formulated? Like, when were the numbers actually created, put on paper? What timeline are we talking about? Last month, 2 months ago, 3 months ago?
We will have the CFO speak at this time addressing
Yeah,
that.
awesome, thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. This is Roy Rigatano, CFO. On? All right, so this budget began formulating October of last year. The process is to go through the debt service first, which I do. Once that debt service is established, I then look at the contracts of the PBA, blue collar, white collar. I look at then the garbage contract and the state health benefits. Those are your biggest line items in Elmwood Park. From there, we begin the formulation. The formulation is with the entire council. We meet informally, formally from November forward. January, we then do, if we meet with the department heads, it's the BA and myself, we bring those back to the council. So this has been going on probably since October, November.
Okay, and the last meetings you were saying, like calibrating what the budget would look at would be what month?
It would be formally was introduced. That would be for the public. Let me see. So
We introduced it in February.
February. Introduction was February. That's when the public was first given notice of what we were looking to do.
Okay, awesome. The other question is in terms of the revenues that you guys have here. Now, this is anticipated for 2020. So this is based on what, sales receipts, property taxes, everything like that. That's going in your revenue line, right?
That's correct. Yep, and we have those broken out in the budget document itself.
Yep, I can see that. Yeah, I get some of that here. The question I have for you in regards to this, we're all dealing with the COVID-19 situation. I'm seeing municipalities across the United States are saying that they're going to have revenue shortfalls, specifically with sales receipts. Do you guys intend to maybe adjust this budget and actually come into the reality of what a lot of municipalities are facing nationwide?
In New Jersey, specifically here for Elmwood Park, sales tax is not an entity. We do not have a swim pool where we would be charging sales tax or a utility. So great question. And of course, we're looking at the revenue stream as we are closed, as you know, basically to the public. However, the large ticket line items are still in operation, your construction departments for new construction. Once this declaration is dissipated, hopefully sooner than later, we anticipate ramping up all of our operations to make up for those shortfalls. The Department of Community Affairs in New Jersey also is monitoring every line item in every budget, and we could not be here tonight unless the Division of Local Government Services actually gave me, the CFO, the go-ahead to present to the council. So this has been absolutely looked at through the RMA, Steve Wilcox, our registered municipal auditor, myself, and every council person here, inclusive, of course, of the mayor and anyone else sitting at this dais.
Okay, so that's good. And thanks for that color in terms of sales revenue as a percentage of total revenue as well, since it doesn't make up that much of it. Now, do we know, maybe this is a question for the council, maybe it's a question but do we have color on whether or not we're going to have any hiring freezes, if anything, in the municipality itself?
Well, this is the mayor. Let me first say that any directive in reference to that would have to come down from the state and the federal government. And at that point, then we would have to adjust to it. And I'm going to allow our administrator to expand on what I just said.
Okay, hi, this is Mike Foligno, the police chief and borough administrator. Regarding hiring freezes, we're not there yet. We are patiently waiting for this to pass. There may come a point in time where we get to that, but we're not there. Excuse me. We also have a significant amount of retirements that are occurring in this calendar year, which we can rely on before we start to consider any hiring freezes or layoffs.
Does that answer the question?
I want to make sure everyone's purviews on this whole point, but this is good to hear that this is on everyone's radar here. I think this is for the question for the CFO. I'm seeing this one part in the budget from 2020 and 2019. I look back in previous budgets and the numbers seem similar year over year. Can you give me a little color on what this $2.2 million reserve for uncollected taxes is? And first let me get that answer first. Maybe I have a follow-up on that. So if you can clarify what that $2.2 million for unreserved for uncollected taxes is.
So that $2.2 million, that is basically a non-spending appropriation. That's the definition under Title 54, if you were to look it up in Google, NJSA 48.4. And what that does is it gives a cushion so that if we don't collect every tax dollar this year that goes out in August, there's a cushion of $2.2 million. That if we don't collect all that money, that becomes the non-spending appropriation. It's a cushion, if I may, for the general public. But it is an absolute appropriation. It's on the annual financial statement that's reviewed by Department of Community Affairs as well. So it's quite a sophisticated gyration of numbers that we use to get and use this in the budget.
Okay. Now, so let's assume that for the, I mean, I'm just assuming for the past couple of years, collection of taxes in the municipality has been pretty good, right? We're not maybe using the reserve at all. So if you said, in 2019 you had 2.2 allocated for this in case, that buffer you talked about, what happens?
That money, great question again. That money then goes to surplus. And that's what's keeping this tonight very, very calm for the general public to understand. Elmwood Park is in very good financial shape with this COVID-19 hitting us, as you know.
Yeah, very good, very good. And so that brings me to my last couple of questions, and you touched upon in the beginning, which is talk about our debt service. And I saw at one point, I forget which statement it was, maybe in 2018, we have a AAA rating. I don't know if it's from Moody's or S&P, but that's great we still have that. I just want to have a question on the debt outstanding amount, the principal amount on the bottom for 2020. It says the total outstanding is, what is that? An outstanding balance of what, 11.2 million? That's how it comes out to be.
I would have to get the annual debt statement. That's something, if you write or leave a number or something, I can get that to you personally. It is a very, very comprehensive, detailed report that's done on or before January 31st of every year. That is called the annual debt statement. I would love to just give you those details. I did not bring that with me. I'm concentrating on the budget, but I will get those answers to you.
Victor, actually, if you go on our website under documents, under downloads, the annual debt statement is found under the financial downloads on our website.
Yeah. I was trying to go through some of the financial statements that's on the download part. It's a little bit, messy from my perspective, but I think maybe a call, maybe something else later on in the future to maybe have that first. Maybe we can test something else in the future to better understand. But maybe I can ask you one question and maybe you can answer it. With the maturity profile that we have, our debt maturity profile in the municipality, would you say it's staggered in nature, or are we having everything maturing, let's say, like 2030? Would you say we stagger our actual obligations, or how is it fixed out?
Okay, so we absolutely stagger. And what happens is we have what we call bond anticipation notes. So those notes are what we call temporary financing. So every year I'll go and I'll borrow money from a bank who gives us obviously the lowest rate. And after a period of time, the RMA, myself, and of course the council will look at when are those maturities occurring. And when we see that we're going to be paying off one of those bonds, anywhere between $5 and $10 million, usually is what we'll issue. When they come off, that's when we'll go to the bond sale. So you'll see in 2018, we did a bond sale because we had a whole bunch coming off. So we do stagger it so that we keep, if you go to page 27 on the annual budget, you'll see we try to keep our debt principal between $1.5 million and $2 million a year. When that drops off, that's when we go to the bond sale. We've been going more aggressively because, as you can imagine, getting a 3% versus 10 and 15 back in the early 90s, we're going to permanently finance as soon as we can.
Yeah, definitely in this environment for sure too. All right, well, look, I appreciate you clarifying all these different questions I had. I really wanted to make sure this was all out there. I'm happy to hear that the finances and also the council is aware of the situation that we're in, and would make appropriate moves if need be. So thanks for this. I'm going to yield my time, but thank you guys so much for answering my questions.
Would anyone else from the public like to speak at this time on the 2020 budget?
Jeffrey Freitag, 35 Hillman Drive, Elmwood Park.
Yes, Jeff?
Okay, what's the average tax increase for the homeowner?
Average tax increase for this year will be $72 on the municipal side only.
Value house.
The value of the home will be $331,733. The tax point, $207,945.
Are there, I did hear a question regarding hiring. Are there any plans to increase the size of the police department?
Mr. Administrator? Police Chief?
So currently, we have 46 officers in our table of organization. There are no plans to go beyond 46, but we do plan to maintain that level of.
Sorry, but I can't hear you.
So currently, our table of organization is 46 police officers, which we currently have. There is no plan to go above that. There is a plan to maintain that.
Also, over the last few meetings, or a couple of meetings ago, there was talk of creating over the bank on Iosia and Broadway a substation, police department. Is that still in the plan?
It's been put on hold because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, thank you.
Would anyone else from the public like to speak on the 2020 budget at this time?
Yes, Joe Dombrowski,
Yes, Mr. Dombrowski.
Joe Dombrowski, 274 Lincoln Avenue. Mr. Riccano, where in the summary would the incremental for the fees for special counsel be?
It would be under legal, and that would be, let's see if I can find that for you, in the budget. Sheet 13. We have appropriated $175,000 for legal services.
Okay, so unfortunately, I don't have that budget in front of me. I'm just looking at the summary that's up on the website right now. And there's, under the summary of appropriations, there's 1 through 5. In there, would that fall under operating expenses, salaries, and wages?
No, other expense.
Other expense, okay. So, on the budget under number 1, operating expenses, salaries, and wages, there's almost $1 million more. Is that because of, well, no, because capital would be, what do you anticipate the extra $1 million to be this year?
All right, the salaries are up $568,000. The pension to the state is $100,000. I'm giving you round numbers. The insurances for health benefits is $150. Garbage recycling is $70. And we appropriated another $300,000 for the excused absences, the accumulated absences. That's our, when someone retires, we had that in the fund for a rainy day, as you know, as councilman. And I'm trying to see what else. Those were the big line items. If you add them up, we get pretty close to that number.
Okay, thank you.
Would anyone else from the public like to speak at this time?
Mr. Laney, can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay, this is Councilman Dan Golbeck. I think I figured out my technological problem, but in the event that I don't unmute myself for the roll call, please record me as a yes vote. And with the permission of the mayor and council, I'd also like to record a yes vote for the other votes that I wasn't able to unmute myself.
Okay, so the only thing that you had missed was ordinance 2009 and our meeting minutes. So you would like to vote yes for those 2 items?
Yes, and in the event that I can't unmute myself for the vote, please record me as a yes for the budget.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Would anyone else from the public like to speak?
If no one else wishes to be heard, I'd like to close the public hearing. I'd like to make a comment on the budget myself before we go forward. This year's budget is what it is.
Participants are muted, and they can unmute themselves.
Okay, we're good to go?
Yes, you could go, Mayor.
This year's budget is what it is. I think we must remain cognizant on our spending going forward. I have asked all department heads to restrain from spending on non-essential items. I think it's important, especially this year due to the virus, we are putting out money that were promised down the road to get refunded. But in between that period, I fear we might run into a cash flow problem. Could you elaborate on that, Roy?
So what we're doing right now is, just like every other town, state, probably in the United States, we're watching every dollar that we're spending. Through the mayor and council and the actual BA, Mike Foligno, I've been instructed that we watch our dollars on cash flow. And as a CFO, I've basically said, law enforcement first, make sure that we keep our borough in safe condition for the residents. That's number one. After that, everything else will fall in line, whether it be the DPW, the administration. So on a daily basis, I'm speaking with the BA, who speaks to the mayor and council daily on the cash flow. So we are fine as of today. 4 weeks ago, we were in even better shape. So this is a fluid situation, but I can assure the residents right now and the mayor, as we meet every single day, that we are, as I say it again for the public, we are in good financial shape at this moment.
And I'd just like to add our respect, our CFO, know him a long time, and he's been an asset to this community for a long time. With that said, I'd like the public also to know, and I think I could speak for the mayor and the council, that we are running this municipality as though nothing is actually occurring, withstanding the restrictions from the governor in terms on what we can do and what we can't do. And I want to have you all rest assured that we are running very, very efficiently. Mrs. Delaney?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. If we can now entertain a motion to adopt the 2020 budget.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
First by Pellegrini, second by Ingwe. On roll call, council members Fasolo,
Yes.
Golubek,
Yes.
Ingwe,
Yes.
Pellegrini.
Yes.
Wetchler,
Yes.
Council President Balistrary.
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we also have one loan resolution for our special meeting, Resolution R-171-20, appointment of Master Plan Planner Topology New Jersey, LLC. Whereas the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Elmwood Park, County of Bergen, State of New Jersey recognize the need for a Master Plan Planner for the Borough of Elmwood Park's Master Plan, which is to be completed by December 31st, 2020. And whereas pursuant to the provisions of NJSA 19:45A-20.5 at SAC, referred to as New Jersey Pay-to-Play Law, and the Mayor and Council solicited proposals on Wednesday, March 11, 2020 for this service. And whereas the Borough of Elmwood Park received 3 proposals to that request, and whereas the proposals were opened on Friday, March 13, 2020, and evaluated by a committee of the council to determine if responses met the needs of the Borough of Elmwood Park. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Elmwood Park, County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, they do hereby secure the services of Topology New Jersey, LLC, 60 Union Street, Newark, New Jersey, at a rate of $3,750 per month over an 8-month period with a not-to-exceed amount of $30,000 out of the Town Planner Other Expenses Master Plan Budget line item, and be it further resolved by the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Elmwood Park that Mayor Robert Coletti and Borough Clerk Erin Delaney are hereby authorized to execute the professional planning consulting contract between the Borough of Elmwood Park and Topology.
If I might add, that this is something that is required by law that we do, I believe, every 10 years. Is that accurate?
That's correct, Mayor.
That's correct. So this is something that we have no choice. We have to have this done, spend the dollars for it. May I have a motion on the resolution? Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
First by Wetchler, second by Balistrary. On roll call, council members Fasolo,
Yes.
Golubek,
Yes.
Ingwe,
Yes.
Pellegrin?
Yes.
Wetchler?
Yes.
Council President Ballastreary?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Before I call for a motion to adjourn, I would just like to take time. We have a sad moment. We have lost a gentleman that was a resident here for many, many years, a councilman who was for many, many years, a board member, and that's more than one board, various boards he served. Mr. Lou Mainday has left us. Lou was here 30 years ago when I was a rookie on the planning board, and I served with him for 4 years. He was a wealth of knowledge, and he could be very funny at times too, providing you were doing the right thing. But he would let you know if you didn't. Lou, going to miss you. Condolences go out to his wife Judy, their children, and their grandchildren. Now, I know, Mike, you had a little story, a few stories about Mr. Monday also, correct?
Yes, Mayor. Mr. Mayday was a sitting council member when I was hired as a police officer in the borough 31 years ago. Also went to school with his children, and my condolences to Ronnie, Lauren, and Lisa, who I am friendly with, and great family, Florence Ave residents, and he's going to be missed.
Yes. Now, Mike, you can appreciate this. Him and former Mayor Mola were very, very good friends. Now, can you picture that conversation that's going on right now? One can only imagine.
I can.
We miss you, Lou. One final thing before we close for adjournment. This is a feel-good moment. We need this in days like this. But if you folks are out and you've noticed the north side bank of Route 80, how it's being cleared, and that continues right down Linden all the way to down Molnar to the Midland Avenue, if you will, before that point. And kudos goes out to our Chief Administrator, Mike Foligno, on spearheading that. This project being done in times like this, there's distancing, there's no problem with human beings. I think that's an accomplishment. Motion to adjourn this special meeting.
Second.
Call the roll.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All right, meeting is adjourned at 7:02 p.m. For the public, if you could just give us a few moments to transition to our work session meeting.
All participants are muted.
Mayor, I'd like to call to order the work session meeting of the Elmwood Park Mayor and Council for April 2nd, 2020, to order at 7:04 p.m. On roll call, Council Members Fasolo. Is Councilman Fasolo on the line? All right. Hold on, he did just message me.
All participants are unmuted.
Hello?
Hi, hold on just one moment.
Yeah, it says that,
Yes,
the host has muted the conference, this line cannot.
I gotcha.
All participants are muted, and they can unmute themselves.
Okay, if Council Members Golovac and Fasolo can unmute themselves at this time, then we'll proceed.
Do you hear me, Aaron?
Yes, on roll call, Council Members Fasolo,
Here.
Golovac, Golovac is here and he is participating via teleconference. Ingui?
Here.
Pellegrin?
Here.
Wetchler?
Here.
Council President Ballastreari?
Here.
Mayor Coletti?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with our normal work meeting. Whereas Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of the State of New Jersey require at the commencement of every meeting a statement of compliance be read by the presiding officer. Now, therefore be advised that this meeting requirements for the meeting have been met by publishing an annual notice in the Record and Herald News of Woodland Park and by posting such notice in the office of the Borough Clerk, as well as in a public place within the municipal building, and by notifying interested citizens. Notice was posted on January 8th, 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, this meeting is being videotaped and will be available on the borough's website at www.elmwoodparknj.us. Mrs. Delaney?
Please note that due to precautionary measures to help prevent the spread of COVID-19, we have a conference call set up for the public to call as a means of participating in tonight's work session meeting. For the public's information and record, the public lines will be muted except for when we open up for our public hearings at the beginning of the meeting and at the end of the meeting. We thank you in advance for your patience during the operation of tonight's meeting.
May I have a motion to open for the public comments?
So moved.
First by Golubek, second by Wetchler. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, before I unmute the lines, I am going to read a statement into the record from an individual that sent it to me via email. Mayor, if you could, yeah, there you go. And it is from a Mrs. Donna Verga. Good afternoon. I am emailing you in regards to a situation at hand with the crossing guards. I am a crossing guard in town and have been laid off because of the COVID-19 situation. During this time, we were told that we are not getting paid going forward and we must use our sick days and then apply for unemployment. Knowing that we don't qualify for unemployment because of our job hours, we all did it anyways and got denied. As you know, trying to get through to unemployment at this point is very difficult because of what is going on. We are relying on this money one way or another, especially during these hard times. It saddens me to see the lack of support for us during this time. Our jobs are just as important as any other. We all stand outside in any kind of weather, deal with drivers who don't pay attention, among other things. But no matter what, we make sure the kids get home safe. I hope you revisit this with a different outlook after reading our emails or hearing our phone calls today. If this can't be resolved, then I hope that someone from the office can email unemployment explaining as the employer that they need to expect us during this time of need. I hope everyone is safe and thank you for reading my email.
I will address that. Ms. Delaney, I think when I'm speaking, you're going to have to shut yours off and vice versa, because we're getting feedback. To that resident, we will be addressing that this evening, so just stay tuned. Ms. Delaney?
Okay. At this time, I will be unmuting the lines for anyone from the public wishing to speak during the public hearing.
All participants are muted. All participants are unmuted.
Would anyone from the public like to speak at this time?
Mike?
Yes, Mr. Freitag, the change order was submitted today by the electrical engineer. We are trying to assist the library director in facilitating this type of a meeting for the library members because they wouldn't be able to meet in person either. Our clerk has touched base with her with the willingness to help set that up for them. So that's all that remains is for the library board to review the proposal and to pass it.
If I may expand on what... Go ahead, Jeff.
The fact that the situation is what the situation is, and this is, I guess, impeding the completion of the project, that either the board president or whomever can approve it.
Yes, well, we have advised them to do a conference call in lieu of the meeting that has been canceled to expedite the situation. Jeff, The administrator and I have been on this 2 times this week. We were down to the library probably 2 times the week before that. Once again, we're not going to rest until we see the completion of that library. Is there a question? Jeff, I'm not quite sure what your question is.
My question is, right now, BPCL, Buckles, they transfer books between libraries. I don't believe they're doing this right now because the libraries are shut down. But although the libraries would not need to be open, they could, much as restaurants serve people through a doorway or whatever, if they receive books from other libraries, they can move them between libraries. I can't go to Fairlawn if they have a book I want. First of all, if they're not open, or any libraries are open, but if they went and did move.
Jeff, if I'm not mistaken, Jeff, if I'm not mistaken, and the chief administrator is not mistaken,
Not from that library, but from one. You order them online, so there's no going there to pick up.
Jeff, if I'm not mistaken, it's been a federal order to close the libraries.
I understand that, but we all have books. We all can move books between the libraries. Somebody can go in there, and if there's a book in Elwood Park that somebody in Ridgewood wants,
Okay.
they don't have to be in the library to pick the book up. Boxed up, they take them just like they transfer books before, without anyone entering the library, only the employee.
Jeff, I'm going to have Mrs. Wetchler answer that question. She's a member of the library board also. Doris?
Jeff, the governor stated no library is allowed to be open. No transfer of any books or anything else is allowed to be done because there's nobody in the libraries themselves. So Buckles could ship books, but I don't know how they're shipping books to any library because there's nobody, no employees in the library at all to accept anything.
Right, I understand that. But I understand it, but much as many places do operate, where you don't have the public going. The state as far as transferring books between the libraries. So, I mean, this could go on for quite a while, and I mean, at the very least, if they're trying to come up with something where they could do this.
Jeff, what I'm going to recommend is that Doris will get a clarification on anything that we're missing here that is being done somewhere else. Okay.
Jeff? Jeff can hear me? Jeff?
Yes, I can hear you. I don't know what's going on in other libraries.
Oh,
Initially, the Fairlawn Library remained open, and then was closed. And then I believe it came down to like the state, the county, whatever. Every day somebody's ordering something, so I don't know. But
Mike, you want to?
I guess that's what happened.
Mr. Freitag. Mr. Freitag, the governor's executive order closed all libraries in the state of New Jersey.
Right, I understand that. But likewise, I'm saying, can somebody raise the issue? I can't go to a meeting and raise an issue. The library director, they're all still getting paid. I would hope they think about these things some way. I could sit around my house and give you 10 different suggestions on how to do it, but I think maybe if somebody brings them up, I'm sure they all talk around with one another, the librarians, the directors. I think it's like something they might pursue.
Jeff, are you referring to, Jeff, are you referring to a physical book?
Yes, they only have electronic copies of very limited.
Okay, my point is, with this epidemic, we shouldn't be transferring anything like that from one person to another. So unless it's electronic, I don't understand your question. We'll make a recommendation, see where that goes.
Would anyone else from the public like to speak? Okay, hearing no one else wishing to speak, I will be muting your lines at this time.
All participants are muted,
If-
and they can unmute themselves.
No one else wishes to speak from the public, I will close the public portion of this meeting. Mrs. Delaney?
Okay, first on the agenda, we have our engineers report provided to everyone via email was the monthly memo submitted by Limo Group. For time purposes, I will not go through every item. Are there any questions from the mayor and council regarding that? Okay, just as an F,
Delaney, just one comment, if I may.
sure, yes.
In the event that next month we're still doing this kind of fusion type meeting, I think at the very least it would be good if Alimo Engineering could call in, like some of us remotely are.
No problem.
I agree with you, Daniel.
Thank you.
And then just a quick update for those that did not know, we had the bid opening on Wednesday that did occur, and we received, I believe it was 4 bids for the 2018 municipal aid with the NJDOT project, and that will be awarded later on this month. With that being said, for resolutions, we have for 2A, the NJDEP TWA application for the River Drive development. We did have confirmation from our borough attorney via email that the mayor can sign the application, but I just put this back on the agenda because we need a resolution giving him that authorization.
Aaron, this has nothing to do with the discrepancy of the road, correct? Because that was an issue.
That was an issue, but the borough attorney advised via email that is separate from this application, and he sees no issue in this being signed.
Okay, so this is basically for the hookups then, which should generate a lot of cash. I believe they're $500 per, am I correct with that, Mike? Do you know?
Do
Okay.
you want me to unmute the line so that the attorney can answer any questions?
Yes, let's get a clarification
Okay.
on what kind of dollars that's going to generate.
Okay, so at this time, I'm going to unmute the line so that our borough attorney can speak on this.
All participants are muted. All participants are unmuted.
Mayor, this is Salvatore Grassi, attorney. Don't worry.
We could hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we're with you. Yes, we're with you. Yes, we are, Sal.
Okay, good. With regards to that,
Okay. And do you know what the hookup fees are?
I don't know what the hookup fees are. It's usually done by the engineering.
Okay. Okay.
What are you doing?
Thank you, Mr. Ingraffia. Yeah, we're here, Mr. Ingraffia.
Okay, I just want to apologize for not being there tonight. Unfortunately, last minute I was advised of something which concerns me, and I don't want to expose anyone else.
Understood, and we thank you for that.
Okay, I will be muting the lines again.
All participants are muted, and they can unmute themselves.
Council members Fasolo and Golbeck will need to again unmute themselves to be able to participate. With that being said, can I move on to 2B, Mayor?
Yes, please.
Okay, 2B, we have a request from our rep.
I'll take it. Yes, and I believe we're speaking about the corner of Molnar and the Boulevard under the underpass. With
I
that,
don't think so. This is the one before it, Mayor. 2C.
2C?
Yeah.
You're probably right. That wasn't the Culinary Brothers. Okay. What's your question once again, Daniel?
My question, just for clarification, this was a recent emergency work repair type situation?
I'm going to switch that over to our administrator.
Councilman Gollabek, I believe this was a continuation of repairs that were being done at that station. That was, some parts were not available at the time, and we were working on one pump out of, I believe, 3. So I believe this is a second phase of that in order to preserve the newer pumps that we got. He wanted to expedite this before we started straining those other pumps.
Or is this completely separate from that?
No, I believe this is part of the larger scope project.
Yeah, because I see different, like, sounds like that, but I just want to make it clear. So essentially, you just needed it now.
Yes.
All right, so it would be saying emergency sewer improvement rather than a repair.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make that note for the minute.
Right, and that was what I was referring to. On the boulevard, yeah.
Any questions on 2D?
Yeah, I do, and I have no expertise in this whatsoever, but the dollar number 68,000 just stands out. What, is there any, like, reason that, or what about this situation required us to go to Colony versus in-house? Was it equipment, was it manpower?
Let me continue. Andrew, I actually went down on the site twice and observed they were in the ground 14 feet, which is quite a depth and expense to get to that point. And I visually saw that happening. I know 68,000 does pop out at you, but when you consider the depth, I think it's kind of justified. And Chief?
Yeah, also, from what I understand, talking to Scott, our workers don't go beyond 6 feet for safety reasons, and they're not properly equipped to do so. Also, this was over a course of numerous days, and it passed over a weekend, so some of the costs may be inflated by the contractor because there's after hours, it's weekend, and it's over the course of about 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, I saw someone there as part of the site, so this was kind of a joint effort?
Well, it's a joint effort in the sense that they will go first and see if they can handle it. If it's beyond their scope, then they move on to the specialist. We're good, Daniel. I was there, the chief was there. So watchful eyes were overlooking the project.
Yep, I'm good.
Mr. Laney?
Okay, our last resolution is 2E Recreation Department. It is a request to hire a cleaning service company from our rec director. Attached is their quote, which was put on a resolution by Roy Rigatano, our CFO and QPA. So it would be $3,000 per month.
I have a question on this. Do we have any record in the past, have there been cleaning operations going on with a cost factor to them, or is this all new?
So this company is new to the borough. We just retain them for Borough Hall, the entire building, police department, and second floor. Donna had requested to speak with them because she wasn't happy with the current service she has. I don't know what she was paying. We can get that information. But this crew has been here for almost a month now, and they're outstanding, and they're very professional, and they've been doing a phenomenal job here in the building. So that's not what we're paying, but we're only getting it 3 days a week. I don't know what she's getting it based on, 7 days or what.
Okay, Mike, is this part of her budget?
Yes,
So this will not exceed her budget?
I would think not. I
Think
mean,
not.
I'm sure she's responsible enough with her
Yeah.
budget.
Well, I'm curious to know what she's paying now, what the difference is in this, if we could get that number.
Yep, so I will hold this resolution then and get more information for the
Okay,
next
thank you.
meeting before putting it on.
Okay, thank you,
No
appreciate it.
If I
problem.
could just add a comment?
Yes, Councilman.
Yeah, I would just think, I mean, part of this, the sample resolution references the coronavirus declaration, but as far as I understand, right now, the senior center, the rec center is all closed with the exception of the rec director and 2 of her employees that alternate days. So my thought would be that, whatever we decide with certain days and whatever the situation is, I don't personally know whether it makes sense to start them in a week, 7 days a week, when there's 2 to 3 employees just in the office space, until obviously the foreseeable future this situation clears up.
That's a good point.
Valid point, Daniel. You're getting old bobbleheads up here. We're all agreeing with you. Mrs. Delaney?
Okay, would anyone else like to speak on that? If not, I'll move along for ordinances. 3A, we have a request from our traffic division regarding stop sign distance reduction and a potential ordinance. So this was asked by the chief to add on for discussion this evening.
Would you care to?
So, Mayor, this has come up several times. The town is bursting at the seams with vehicles. Parking is limited, especially in the business districts. We want to try to be able to, enhance that area and allow for more parking so we could draw more businesses. This would have to be only in certain areas and not the entire town, where we would allow, you'd probably get one more car per intersection there by the stop signs. Had the traffic division speak to the State Traffic Officers Association. They said there is no liability. Had our borough attorney look into this, and we don't see any issues, but we don't want to do it in school zones, that's for sure, and we may want to exclude it in certain areas where we feel are highly traveled and it would cause a view obstruction, but I'm for it in specific locations.
Thank you, Chief. I think this is very, very important. To echo your words about the shortage of parking in our town, and I know we're trying to weed out the offenders who are living in illegal dwellings, and if we add these parking spaces back onto the street, I think it's significant. I'm very, very, very pleased about this, and I think we've all been hearing it from people in our neighborhoods. So this is a very good thing for this council.
Can I just say something?
Absolutely.
I think it's a great thing also. I'm just wanted to make sure, like, our attorney definitely checked into it and we're not going to be liable if there's any accident, because I know when we've talked about it in the past at work meetings, that's what the fear was, that if there was an accident and we didn't go by the state rules, that us as a borough would be responsible. But you've heard different now.
So I'll answer that, and then I'll ask Mr. Ingraffia to weigh in. I believe that was what we thought, but we looked into it further, and we've been told differently now. So, Mr. Ingraffia? So what I would suggest we do is we will identify through the traffic division what intersections we feel comfortable relaxing that at. And at those intersections, like we do at others, on the bottom of under the stop sign, we can put 25 feet of this sign, whereas the state law now is 50. The ones that we don't change, we can leave the 50 mark and leave the either curb painted or like we've been painting out the box in the street. So with the lines being painted and reduced and the signage being put up, I think that would be clear for the officers and for the residents.
Daniel, the chief and I had discussed this, and we don't want these corners to be ambiguous now that we're going to make this change. So we're going to find a color to paint that yellow line that's close to the curb color. This way it would eliminate a lot of confusion for the residents.
I do believe Mr. Ingraffia did submit a draft ordinance addressing this already, which I have in front of me and I could send via email, but at this point I will unmute the line so that he could add anything further.
All participants are muted. All participants are unmuted.
Mr. Ingraffia?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Every time I unmute, there's going to be a delay, so it doesn't unmute right away, but the floor is yours.
Oh, okay. State statute requires a 50-foot. However, it leaves it up to the municipalities to make changes to it. not be anything less than 50 foot in a particular stop sign intersection close next to a school. So therefore, that remains the same. It's addressing the issue of notice and ticket. There is obviously, once this is adopted, that there's going to be signage and markings that will delineate the particular distance from the stop sign. Again, like anything else, once there's a yellow line and/or a marked sign that says the distance from stop sign 25 feet, that's sufficient notice for anyone to overcome with regards to ticketing that. Just to answer Councilman Golubach's
Thank you for that response, Mr. Ingraffia. Yes,
Mr. Ingraffia, I just want to just be sure, because I know we talked about this several times. I'm for it. I'm definitely for it. It's a great idea for our borough. I just want to make sure that legally, if there was an accident when we changed this ordinance because we didn't follow state procedure, would the borough be liable?
No, the borough would not be, because the 20-foot distance is a minimum that you can actually mark off. And with regards to that distance is sufficient to give anyone enough space to speed when you have to hear or you have to make a turn.
Okay.
So it should not, and I would not believe that in any way the town would be liable for anything that would occur at that point.
Thank you.
can anybody elaborate on that? Just to bring me up to speed. I didn't have an opportunity
Mike, can
to.
you go over the dumpsters, just so I don't have to keep on muting Sal, or do you not?
So the dumpster permits, the building inspector and I identified that the ordinance was outdated, antiquated, it needed to be brought up to speed. We had some things in there that weren't in there, like, let's say if you got one for your home and you put it on your front lawn or in your driveway, there was no time frame. You could just leave it there indefinitely. So we added it in, like, I believe, a 30-day thing with a renewal period. Placement on the road, who can enforce it. We extended it. It was only the police department. We extended it to the building department and public works. So certain things like that, we just updated the ordinance and added some things in. And we also, by my recommendation, because a lot of people come to the building department to do work and get permits, and then they have to be redirected to the police department to get a dumpster permit. It was my feeling that that permit should be able to be handled by the building department rather than send the person to the police department. And now the two departments are working well and sharing information. So we're scanning forms in, they're sending them to the officers. So if they're driving on their patrol and they see a dumpster, they know it has to be on boards, it has to have the proper reflectorized materials on it, and it can only be there for a certain amount of days, and they have to have paid the fee permit. So those are some of the things that we added to this ordinance.
Excellent, it all sounds good. Any comments by the council? Mrs. Delaney?
Okay, and 3C is an ordinance, again, drafted with our building department, fire prevention, our borough administrator, and a borough attorney. So I don't know if our borough administrator wants to discuss the illegal dwellings ordinance.
Can you have Sal talk about that one? He's got a little bit more versed on it than I am.
No problem. Sal, I will be unmuting your line again so that you could touch base on the illegal dwellings ordinance.
All participants are muted. All participants are unmuted.
Mr. Ingraffia?
Okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Sal, where are you, on a farm?
Down, boy.
Sounded like a rooster. Sounded like a rooster over here. Let me. Let me say this, that this is a ordinance that has been making many councils over the years scratch their heads. There's something about illegal dwelling that is not fair to all of us paying our taxes. They should not exist. They burden our school system. And let it be known out there that we are not going to tolerate it. And by making this, adding these features to this ordinance and making it more stringent, council, how do you feel about that? We're all on board with that. So beware if you have a illegal dwelling.
Okay, Councilman Fasolo has a question.
Mr. Ingraffia, if you heard that, would you like to respond?
Yes, you still are.
Oh, okay. Well, there are various components of parks. I think I can sit with Councilman Pizzolo and sort of line by line go over with him certain major changes that become more effective. And there are added provisions which rather than me outlining line by line, I thought it was a lot more prudent and a lot more efficient to rewrite the whole ordinance. All the particular private ordinance out and implement it.
Let me add, I had spoken with the building inspector when he was working on this. Two items that I can remember. One would be that you cannot have a kitchen and a bathroom. Before, the way it read, you could have both in your basement, and that wasn't considered illegal. And that is one aspect of the ordinance that has been changed.
If you'd like me to, Mayor, I think also there are other factors in there with regards to entranceways.
Right.
Utilization of basement, certain utilization of doors, which clarify and makes it a little bit more difficult for anyone to utilize a particular space.
Correct. And in reference to the basement door, you will not going forward be able to access to the basement from the outside other than a Philco, one of those metal doors, which would signify that the basement is more for storage, et cetera, not for living. So those are some of the changes, Mr. Fasolo. He said, got it. Thank you, Mr. Fasolo, thank you. Stay with us.
Okay, anything further on that ordinance?
God bless.
Okay, and then before I mute you again, Mr. Ingraffia, 3D is just something from General Code regarding ordinance number 1906. So if you can just review those three questions and get back to me, I think that would be easier. And then just
Which one is that?
3D, it was an email from General Code, and it was just a recommendation about reviewing these items before revising future legislation. So maybe we could talk offline about that, just to save some time.
Mine stops at 3C, I don't.
All right, I will send that to you via email then, Mr. Ingraffia.
Okay, I appreciate it, yes, because I don't have it here.
All participants are muted, and they can unmute themselves.
Okay, Councilman Golombek and Fasolo, if you could unmute yourselves at this time as we move on to item number 4, discussions. 4A, we have the shared parking for businesses, which I will turn over to our Police Chief Foligno.
Thank you. So the mayor and I had a discussion with a business owner who is struggling to meet the needs of his parking. What we wanted to bring to the table tonight is going forward, allowing existing businesses only who can agree upon it to allow them to share parking for the betterment of the businesses, because some of the businesses are thriving. They can't expand their business because there's no parking. Some of the closer businesses have parking that they're not utilizing, or maybe their business ends at a certain time and the other business picks up in the evening. So we want to be able to permit these businesses to share parking. What we don't want to do is have new businesses come in and strike up this deal with another business, because if the business that they enter into an agreement with ends up closing or moving, then we already approved, the boards would have approved it based upon the business being there, based upon the additional parking. So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about existing and only during the time that this is existing. Mayor?
If I can piggyback on that, well said, Michael. The whole thought behind this is if we have a business in Elmwood Park that's thriving and bursting from the seams, that's a good thing. And we don't want to discourage that by not allowing that business to stay here based in Elmwood Park, by simply making a deal down the street with somebody who's not utilizing the parking area. And they come to a conclusion on that. But as our administrator has stated, this is not for the person coming in to the zoning board or the planning board looking to make a deal with a neighboring business, and his parking is going to be predicated off of the neighbor's business. We can't do that at the start. But once again, a business thriving that is established already, went through the whole process, they come in, they say they need help. So basically, that's what we're giving them, is relief and help in that respect.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, definitely.
Is everyone on board?
Yes.
And then we could have our attorney draft an ordinance. All right, next under discussion is the Rosemont Park Basketball Court, which was requested from our rec liaison and council president, Al Sherry.
Yes, I had spoken to council members. Oh, what? Somebody's got something on. Oh, wow, okay. About the Rosemont Park basketball. Mayor, I know I mentioned to you a couple of weeks ago that they want to go forward with the half court. I don't know what's.
Might be better to use this one. Do you want to turn that one off?
Sure. So. Okay. So anyway, being that the parks, like, we're getting close to this project now, we don't want to delay it because of the basketball court. And it is a recommendation of our borough administrator and as well as our rec director that we do the half court. And council members had all agreed to that they thought that would be the way to go. So the fact that the parks are closed now, if this project can get moving forward, we don't want to delay it. So we want to make sure, Donna wants to make sure that everybody's on board with the half court, and if there's any questions, we can ask our police chief or Donna, because there are 3 parks that are full court still.
There's still, this will bring us down to 2?
Donna?
No, we have Birchwood, we have Gould, and we have Elmwood, and then this one would be our 4th one, which we would be converting to half. So you would still have 3 full courts.
I have 2 questions on the subject. The advisory board, did they not give a nod on this, yay or nay?
Well, I know they were on board with making Elmwood a half court. We haven't discussed this one in particular, no. I mean, we haven't had a meeting for a few months now.
Okay, well, I know, and Donna, we know, we spoke about this throughout the years, that before a major decision like this, we'd want the blessing, one way or another, of the advisory board. I remember there was a lot of flack when we took away the courts here at Beryl Field, and I understood why they should have been taken away, but going forward, are we really going into that area of where we're hurting our people in town who want to play basketball, or are we designing this to eliminate for other reasons?
Well, here's my theory on it, and this has always been my theory on it. When you have a full court, you usually get out-of-towners. Because in other towns, if they don't have full courts, or the rims are down, or the rims are broken, or there's no nets, out-of-towners will always go with their full courts, and it's a nice court, and there's rims and nets. So I think also our kids, if there's out-of-towners on them, of course, don't have a chance to play. They kind of get shoved aside. I've always felt that when you have a half court, at least our kids get to play. Usually you get fewer outsiders, you have less of a crowd, so you have less noise, you have less garbage, and you have less of an intrusion upon the neighborhood homes.
Okay, and I understand that, and we've had that discussion in the past. I just would feel better, number one, if the committee actually gave us their blessings one way or another, and this is something that I know cannot be answered very quickly, but in my opinion, I'd like to put it on hold to get their opinion before we're going forward. Yes, go ahead.
Don, I just want to make a comment on what you mentioned. I definitely agree with you about the out-of-towners, because I know several times my son and the boys that usually play at the rec center have tried to play on the courts outside, and then they get...
But I can't understand what it is you're saying.
Hold on, Don, he's bringing me the cell. Thank you. I said I understand what you're saying about the out-of-towners using the courts, because I know that my son and the boys that end up playing up at the rec, that they do try to play at other courts first sometimes on those nicer days, and they can't get on them. So I agree with you 100% about the out-of-towners using the courts. But I also agree with the mayor, maybe we should just know that the advisory board is on, is okay with it as well.
Well, if no one has a problem with it, I mean, obviously we're not going to be meeting, but I can always poll them via email.
Yeah, maybe you can do that if you don't have a next meeting date, just so we can move it forward.
Okay.
Okay?
I'd just like to ask the chief his opinion on this, since he was for the half court for safety issues.
Parks that have the full courts, in particular Elmwood and Rosemont, we get the most complaints at. For some reason, Gall and Birchwood doesn't draw older teenage kids, but those other two parks do. The full court, obviously, more people are going to play. They tend to be rowdier, louder, vulgar. They do damage to the park. They don't respect the neighborhood. And those are the complaints we get year in and year out from those two particular parks based upon full court basketball games. That's my opinion based on fact. I would be supportive of cutting those two in half, both courts at those two parks, which I think would help the people who live in the neighborhood and also reduce the amount of calls that the police have to go on for these types of nuisance calls.
Constant complaints from the residents at both Elmwood Drive and over in the Rosemont area for those very same reasons. As a matter of fact, one of the people that lives on Elmwood Drive calls myself and my secretary all the time and actually like swears at us. And it's like, when are you going to move this court? When are you going to make it a half court? Because there's just too many people gathering there, and it's too much.
So
it's too much on those little neighborhoods.
The past two seasons, summer seasons, spring, summer seasons, I've had to actually have a dedicated patrol Elmwood Park in particular, because the residents over there would call me every day because of these rowdy, vulgar basketball games, and I had to have an hourly patrol from, say, 10 a.m. till the park closed at 9, of police officers stopping there and checking on the people in the park to make sure that they weren't, being abusive.
Yeah,
Can I just make a comment?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Don.
So I'm in favor of this, and the first thing I'd say is I would support emailing the rec advisory board, so God knows when they'll be able to physically meet again, on that, and that's one. Two, we have the grant for this, so, it would be in our interest to put this project out to bid, so, for the summer starting, we can have, that brand new park. And three, and I guess this could be, whether through Donna or Mike, since it's gonna be a half basketball court, it's not really in the middle of the park now, but it also isn't off to the side. My suggestion would be to see if it could be moved a little closer to fence side, street side, so maybe there could be more of like an open grassy space in the park as opposed to just, just the visualization of it in my head is that if it's gonna be so small now, might as well rip it up where it was, move it over a little bit, so we have a little open green space. So that's the conversation with the engineer and all people. That's just my thoughts on that. And with Birchwood, I don't remember what the last word on that was, but D&L paving will be paving, I want to say Elmwood Drive in the next few months. So I think, all the effort we had to try to get some contractor to move the court, that'll be our shot, because it could just be a change order to the road program, it won't cost them much if they're already there. So those are my thoughts.
Daniel, I'd just like to comment.
Of moving the basketball court at Rosemont over to the corner, if it's feasible, I believe it would be a better solution. I just didn't know if you wanted to spend the extra money. I thought if we were gonna go to half court, we were just gonna literally cut the court in half and remove the other half of the asphalt, fill it in.
Yeah, if I can comment.
Move it to the other corner, that's fine with me. You just need to give me that
Yeah,
decision.
we're saving money, because we're not.
Daniel, if I may, your scenario, by moving the court, Donna's 100% right. You don't know what kind of cost factors you are going to be subjected to. By reducing the court in half, the demolition aspect of that is cheap, much cheaper than relocating the court, for sure.
Correct, Mayor, but if I could just interrupt, I believe the plan calls for a new basketball court. So right now, if we make this decision, we go from a new basketball court, where it would have been ripped up and replaced, to new half court.
Yeah.
So I think what was budgeted to put a new full court in, I want to say that number should be sliced in half. So if you're moving it over, I don't necessarily think that would be a cost factor, but it's something we can look into.
Yeah, Daniel, that will be predicated on the elevations of where you're moving it. If it's lower and has to be filled in,
I'm just suggesting that be a discussion for the aesthetics of the park, for open space, and all those kinds of things.
I didn't get what he last said.
Can I ask this question, please? I will reach out to the rec advisory board to see what their opinion is. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for that to happen, and I can get back to you with that, can we start with the rest of the project, removing all the old stuff, getting all the new stuff in?
Yeah.
And then, I can let you know, probably by tomorrow, if everyone answers me, what their decision is. And then I can get a price on removing half the court, and leaving it where it is, or moving a half court over to the corner, or a full court over to the corner, depending on what the poll is.
That sounds good, Donna.
Donna? So if the majority of the advisory board agrees, now the council, what's the council feel on it? I will go with the recommendation of our director and our chief of police.
Can I make a suggestion? Let's wait for that moment, and then...
Well, I just don't want to delay it, that maybe 2 weeks from now, while
Well,
she
we're
can
being
start the
presumptuous
project.
to assume that the committee is going to be for this.
I said if the majority, I said.
Well, if, they got to get to the point.
I
to
mean,
make-
Donna, see if you could get to find out from them as
Yeah,
soon
I
as
think that-
possible.
Sandy, that's what we got to establish first.
Okay.
Is that vote from them. I think that's essential. Because I know there was a lot of flack last time, and I don't know if it was the commission still active, but they didn't like the idea of losing that court on Beryl Field. And I got to be honest with you, to this day, I don't like it myself, and I realize the whole council, they have their own opinions. But at that time, there was a bunch of fellas that were playing there. They actually came to my house and they said, Mr. Coletti, why are you taking this away from us? Because outsiders are coming in. At what expense are we doing this? Just to avoid outsiders, or are we hurting our own within the town? And that's my contention.
Yeah, I think their thought is to help the residents, not necessarily just the outsiders. But I think even if I remember correctly, Donna, didn't you have responses from residents in that area where they wanted half or no basketball court at all?
They should have moved next to a park.
Let Donna?
Again, it's not that we're only trying to do it to keep outsiders out. We're trying to keep outsiders away so that our own kids can use it, and that's a big problem. A lot of kids complain that when they go to the courts, there's other people there and they can't use the courts. Now, again, whether they're out of towners or in towners, you can't say for sure, and you can't stop out-of-towners from coming in to use any of the parks, obviously, because they're open space or green acres. However, when our kids come to us and say, we can't play, they usually know if the kids are from in town or not. So I think by doing this, you're actually freeing up the courts to our own kids to use.
I can't see how by decreasing a field, we're helping our own in this scenario. I understand the problems and the policing aspect of it, but we're taking away a full-length court that our children, that first of all, it's been paid for by the taxpayers. Now we're taking it away from our children because we're worried about other children playing on I don't think we can do that. I don't think we can base our thoughts on the fact that because of others are on the court, we're going to take away half of a court from our children. That's my opinion.
We're talking about all the noise. We're talking about all the vulgarity. We're talking about the garbage. We're talking about the police having to go there all the time to patrol the parks because it's causing a problem. We're talking about the neighbors in those small neighborhoods complaining because the basketball court is right there in front of their houses, and they're the ones that hear the noise, and they're the ones that hear everybody swearing and see the garbage and call and complain all the time. So it's not only to stop the outsiders, it's to stop all the trouble that we're having at these full courts. And like the Chief said, for some reason, we don't seem to have that problem at Gaul, and we don't seem to have that problem at Birchwood. And I don't know if it's because maybe the outsiders don't know that those parks exist, and maybe Elmwood Drive Park and Rosemont are, I don't know, more visible or more accessible. I don't know. But we don't seem to have those problems at Gaul and Birchwood, but we always seem to have them at Rosemont and Elmwood. And we used to have them at Borough Field. If you remember, they were actually driving up on the field to flash their headlights on the court so they could play into the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah. Well, Donna, I respect your opinion. It's just that I feel we're giving up too much. The cost is too much. To resolve the problem, it's costing us too much. But that's my own personal opinion.
I actually own a home across from Squirrel Field. I used to get calls all the time for complaints about people playing basketball at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. I think a half court would definitely reduce the amount of, complaints we get there.
Yeah, well, they shouldn't be on that court at 2 in the morning. That's irrelevant here. They shouldn't be on it. That's not curing the problem or creating the problem. All right.
Mayor, may I suggest that we get the poll from the Rec Advisory Board, get those findings, and make a final decision in next week's work session?
Sounds good.
To at least see what the council wants, and then I will poll the Rec Advisory Board.
Say that again, Donna?
could you please at least poll the council members to see what they're recommending, and then I will poll
No.
the rec advisory board?
No, it should be the opposite. You're taking away the whatever power they have by assuming, let's say this board votes ahead of time, and that gets out to them, it's a moot point with them. Don't even bother calling them up. Let the rec advisory board do its job and give us a consideration on it, and then we will vote at that point, or the council will vote. That's my standings on it.
Okay.
Donna, this won't delay you on this project?
Have your go-ahead, well, yeah, you know what, it is going to delay me, because now that I'm thinking about it, I can't start the rest of the work until I give all the final figures to the finance department so that they can prepare the bond.
Donna, let me stop you right there. The rule of thought here is, it starts off with the rec committee. Then you take that and you bring that to us. We cannot jump that procedure.
Hey, Mayor, but Councilwoman Ballesteri was asking me if I could get started or not without it, and I can't. Because I have to give all the final figures as a total to the finance department in order for them to get the resolution ready for the bond.
Okay, well,
So
Donna,
the basketball court is part of that project.
Donna-
So I have to make sure that that's in that. Unless we want to take the basketball court out of the project, and then because I have the prices for everything else already, other than the fencing on the dog run.
Donna, we're trying to stay to procedure here. And by allowing you to poll the council tonight before the committee can, with a clear head, vote on this, I see that completely breaking the procedure here. I don't even think we should be talking about this, to tell you the truth. This should have been done ahead of time. If you're so bothered by it, it should have been done ahead of time. And you should have came to us with a decision from the committee, and we wouldn't be having this conversation.
I'm not debating that point, Mayor. What I asked was, I will not be able to go forward with any other part of the project. So do we want to take the basketball court out of the equation for now so I can go ahead with the rest of the project, or do we want to wait on the whole project until we get a definitive answer on the basketball court?
When would you need your answer by, in order to go forward with the entire project, not to pull something out of it?
Let her get on the phone tomorrow and poll the...
Right, but I'm
It's
asking...
not a matter of when, it's I need to have an answer so that I can get prices on the basketball court to throw it in with the rest of the prices that I already have.
Okay, so if she can poll them, maybe she'll get them all tomorrow or by Monday. How do we get an answer to her? She wants to know where we stand, and I'm going to say where I stand. I am going to support their recommendation. So yes.
Whose recommendation?
The recommendation of the chief of the police, our borough administrator, and our rec director.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Administrator. The correct procedure, that's why we have a committee there. They are to make some type of a recommendation to Donna, who in turn will bring that to us. That procedure has not been fulfilled at this very moment.
Yeah, Donna, is this something you could turn around in a day?
Get a hold of them. What I'll do is I'll email them first thing in the morning, and then if they don't answer me, which they're usually tantamount not to do, I will try calling them all individually. But don't forget, you have quite a few new members now that we haven't even sworn in.
Yes.
Right, so all respect to Donna, we haven't met, and we've had the three new members? So this is why this couldn't have been decided prior, even if she wanted to poll them, because I don't think we met in about at least 2 or 3 months.
And here's the other two, and I guess, Chief, this is going to be a question for you or the borough attorney. Being that they're technically not sworn in as members, am I even allowed to poll them, or do I just poll the 4 remaining members?
Just poll the 4 that are remaining, and this is the proper procedure here. Otherwise, we're breaking procedure, which I would vehemently disagree with, and I'd like our attorney's opinion on that also. All right.
findings or reject their findings and do as they please. So I don't think 7 days will change much, considering this project's been talked about for years. This is the first time we're talking about this aspect of it.
Okay, so in the interim, Donna, can you get prices with and without?
That's what I'm thinking. What I'll do is I'll get a price to rip out half the court. I'll try to get a price to move the whole court, or just put in move and put in a whole new court or a whole new half court. I'll try to do that. I'll do the 3 options.
Yeah. And just poll the four members that are sitting now, those are the 4 you poll.
Right, and then,
I'm sorry, Don, it's Doris Wetchler. Just poll the 4 sitting members on the advisory board now, since the other three have not been sworn in. And then you could let us know as soon as you know, Don, so then Thursday night, we can, once you give us the proposals and everything, we can tell you yes, no, maybe so. How's that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Because this way we know where we're going. You can tell us what you found out, and then this way we can give you the go-ahead by Thursday night, Friday morning. So this way we can have it going,
Okay.
Okay,
So I'll
thanks,
add
Don.
this back on the agenda for our next work session meeting.
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you, Erin.
All right, thanks,
You're
Donna.
welcome.
thanks for your time,
All right,
Donna.
that's it? Everybody's done?
Yep.
Okay.
Good night.
Yeah, Mr. Fasolo, the only thing that I will challenge that with is at what cost?
You can find out the price.
Yeah. And the rest of the council's in agreement. When we get the numbers, then I think we'd have a clear picture on that decision.
I want to repeat, and I'm 99% sure of this, the plan calls for a brand new basketball court. There's a cost to that. In this scheme, we would be building half of the new basketball.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
At least that's the case. But that's all right. We'll figure it out by next week.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else on that before we move on? Okay, 4C, Board of Health appointment. We are waiting to hear from our attorney, so we will be pulling that from what I understand, correct, Mayor?
Yes, we're pulling that right now. We're waiting on some legal advice.
Okay. With that being said, that is all I have on the agenda for our public work session, Mayor.
Okay, our council reports and the mayor's report, and I guess I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Am I correct?
Second public hearing, Mayor.
Hold it. We have a comment from our administrator.
Can I just read on the...
That's fine.
Okay, the Elmwood Park Residents Assistance Program, Elmwood Park PBA Local 185, and members of the Elmwood Park Police Department command staff have partnered together to spearhead an initiative to help families who have been impacted financially by the COVID-19 situation. As a joint effort, we were able to raise $2,000 and purchased 80 $25 gift cards that will be provided to families in need. The Community Policing Division of the Elmwood Park Police Department reached out to the following local restaurants and food establishments who have agreed to partner with us to launch this community outreach program. I'll read the restaurants off. Francesca's Pizzeria, Manhattan Bagel, D&N Deli, Blue 42 Restaurant and Bar, King Falafel, and Riverview East. Elmwood Park families in need should contact Detective Randy Garillo at 201-796-0700, extension 119, or Detective Tom Giamanco at 201-796-0700, extension 112, if they are looking to acquire some of these gift cards. Anyone who wishes to donate to this cause, please contact RAP coordinators Lori Spraviro at 201-796-1457, or Dion York, same number, extension 212. Thank you to the Resident Assistance Program, Elmwood Park PBA Local 185, Elmwood Park Police Department for coming together to help local families in need and supporting local businesses at the same time. Also special thanks to you, the mayor and council, for assisting with and supporting this program. Mayor?
Thank you, Lorraine. That was very, very nicely put. Before we adjourn, though, we have one last thing to do here, ladies and gentlemen. We got to open this to the public again. Motion to open to the public.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Erin?
Okay, at this time, if you give me a moment, I will open the lines back up to the public. If you do wish to speak, please state your name and address for the record.
All participants are muted. All participants are unmuted.
Would anyone like to speak at this time from the public?
This is Sal Thornbrack. Hello?
Okay, hi Sal.
Okay, just a clarification, if I may. I don't know how to get in beforehand, in any event. Just for the sake prior to anyone discussing it, I just wanted to mention one thing. I did find that one part that I said I did not have, but I did have, it was on the floor. That's 3D that you referenced to?
It was, yes, 3D.
Okay, I've already looked at it, and I want to give you some comments on it.
Okay, great, thank you so much.
Also with regards to the joint share parking, I didn't know how to interject myself at that point, so I have to learn that yet. With regards to that issue as to the shared parking for businesses, that you need to adopt an ordinance to allow it. True, however, it's going to be a little more complicated, and I'll discuss that with the mayor and council at the executive session.
Sal, what are you referring to? A? 4A?
4A, yes.
Okay, well, we need that clarification because this is something that,
Well, I suspect this is the first I've heard of it, and therefore I just have to give you some comment to vote to before you start drafting ordinances allowing private property to be utilized by private individuals.
okay. With that said, and
I can discuss that with you the executive session.
well, you should, Sal, I would think in the future, if that's the case, you give us notice and we'll pull it to give you ample time to do your analyzation.
Well, I would assume you want me to prepare the ordinance.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes,
I'm going to advise you before.
yes, Sal, for sure.
All right. The other thing is that, all right, okay, that's it.
All right, thank you, Sal. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Public?
Yes, Joe Dombrowski, 274 Lincoln Avenue. Mayor, I wanted to, about 5 years ago, I was totally in favor of doing shared parking. And when we had the attorney Joe Randazzo at the time, we were all thinking, hey, it's a great idea. And I'm still for it, but back then I was for it, but we didn't do it because the one thing that he found out was you can have an agreement between two businesses and or two landlords, but what happens when the one landlord sells his property and the new person coming in then says, no, you can't park here?
Well,
That was the problem that we had 5 years ago, and I think that may be the situation that Mr. Ingraffia may be having
yes, well, Joe,
maybe a sidebar discussion with you.
yeah, I'm aware of that because I was here when we were discussing that. I believe I was. And what we're doing is, if that does occur, that person that had the deal, at that point, the deal is off. It's just a relief valve to have that business stay in town, not leave us because of maybe he can acquire some square footage very close to his business or elsewhere. At that junction point, the deal is off. And that's why we cannot originate that that stipulation going forward in the zoning and planning aspect of the application. So, no, we're aware of that, Joe, and it's a good point.
I was in favor 5 years ago, I would be in favor of it now. If you can figure out a way to do it, that's great. But that was the sticking point, that's why we didn't do it
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Yeah, and we're aware of that, and we're trying to work around that so that we can give some temporary relief. You have anything you want to say on that?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Dombrowski's concern, but maybe the attorney can write that particular caveat into the ordinance, that if a business changes hands, then they have to renegotiate with that business, and temporarily, the deal is off.
Temporary result, that's right. We did our best to extend a courtesy to the business, and if going forward, they can't seem to come to terms on an agreement, or the business just says, you can't use my property any longer, then the original person would have to go back to the original deal of his, whatever his property states as far as use goes.
Again, I would love to see this, I would love to see it work. I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. That's a good point.
Would anyone else from the public like to speak?
Peggy Fife, 205 Lincoln Ave.
Can you just
Sorry,
spell
I was a little late getting on. I am a crossing guard in town, and I was wondering if anything was said about us, since we're all unable to collect unemployment.
I'm sorry, ma'am, can you just
Okay. Thank you for placing the call. We are very, very aware of what's going on, and this discussion will take place regarding your concerns in executive meeting when we conclude this meeting. So just stay tuned. I think you're going to hear a little good news, but that has to be discussed amongst the council first in executive.
would anyone else like to speak from the public?
Yeah, Jeffrey Freitag, 35 Hillman Drive, Hillman Park. I do have a question regarding on the agenda. I was not able to ask this because it actually fell after the public portions for the ordinance. The appointment of master planner, topology, those fees, are they supplementing the 3,000 a month they already get?
Jeff, the annual fee we pay them is one item, and now they are going to take on the additional workload of the requirements of the new planning aspect of the master plan. So it's two separate items, two different costs.
Okay, number two, you just been told by a caller, I believe it's ECHYS, that stay tuned, meaning you're going to open up the meeting?
No. Pardon me for that usage of language. I was just trying to encourage the young lady not to be despondent based on what I'm assuming might happen in an executive. That's all that was. Sorry for the poor use of language.
Today is my 70th birthday.
Oh, happy birthday. Happy birthday.
God bless you.
Happy birthday.
Jindan on your birthday. Jindan, 101.
Would anyone else like to speak from the public?
Yeah, hi, Chris Redlock, 27 Linwood Avenue.
Yes, dear.
Hi, Ms. Gardlock.
Hi, you can hear me. Okay, well, I just want to say thanks to the mayor, council, and Chief Foligno for everything that you're doing for the residents in this tough time that we're having.
Thank you for the compliment. I can assure you that there's nobody, there's no grass growing under our feet here. This government has been functioning. Our council, we're in daily, if not every other day, communication with all the council people. They were all on board for doing all we could, considering our restrictions. I'm happy to be able to say that as the mayor of this town at this point.
Yes, I just wanted to thank everybody, Chief, Foligno included, because there's a lot that's been going on, so I appreciate it all.
Stay healthy, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Would anyone else from the public like to speak?
Yes.
Okay, please state your name and address.
Berger, 9 Overland.
Okay.
Good evening.
Everybody, this one, take that out to say thank you.
Can you please repeat that? The audio was just a little rough.
Hello? Donna, repeat it. I want to say thank you guys for all your hard work through these hard times as well.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, dear.
It's not very easy with this virtual schooling, and I give these teachers credit.
They're doing a great job.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you, but it sounded like you were saying something real good to us, so we'll thank you automatically.
Would anyone else from the public like to speak? Anyone else?
Are you there?
We're here.
Hello?
Yes?
Better? Yes, you guys are all very well. I just want to say thank you for the teachers, too, from Elmwood Park, how hard they're working to virtually teach all the students as well.
Yes.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This isn't a very easy task, but, we're all pulling together as a community, and that's what we need to do.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's funny about Americans in times like this, how we forget our differences and we put them in back of us and we use our ingenuity to pull out of times like this. So that's one great part of the fact that we got a melting pot of intelligence in this United States as we know it. In the 240 plus years that we've probably created the best society, the greatest government in the world has ever seen.
I'm just hoping that society goes back to normal very soon, because we need to socialize again.
Yes, and I'm sure it will, but when you go through something like this, there's going to be a little change. It's probably not something that you or I would be used to, but for the younger folk, there's going to be a slight different change, which probably would be for the good in terms of the total population of the United States. But let's hope that we go back to 95% of what we had.
Yes, you're right. But thank you, everybody, and please, everybody stay safe.
You too.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak at this time? Anyone else?
If no one else cares to speak, I will call for a motion to close the public portion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And now I need a motion to go to adjourn and go into executive.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. These proceedings are now closed.